And welcome to the monastery. Fucking OBS, man. I am your one only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me, I have a newcomer into the temple. Coming to us from Flying Monster Games, the creators of Adventures of Combat and Quest, as well as its companion software, Questware, which both of those we'll be getting into tonight. The one and only Ozzy Chaney. How you doing today, man? Well, tonight.
You? Good. Yourself, Mildred?
I am doing good. It hasn't hit full winter yet. It's still in that will they, won't they of fall/autumn, depending on who you ask. But I know what's coming.
Yes, winter's coming.
Hmm. I know that that's been abused a lot since the days of Game of Thrones being relevant, but for me, that's not a meme. That's just a fact of life.
I just find the winter gives us more time to game.
Yeah, you're not wrong on that. I mean, everybody's stuck inside anyway, so you may as well get some use out of it.
Absolutely.
Uh, but with that said, it's a bit of a tradition around here to open with the humble beginnings, in a sense. So, with that in mind, I'd like you to walk me through your first introduction to role-playing games and what made it stick.
Yeah. Let's see. My first time playing any role-playing game, what got me interested in was, I played '96. I picked up Magic, and then a buddy invited me over, and we were making characters for, I believe it was second ed at the time, and we never got anywhere with it. They ended up just like having a party that night, and nobody actually wanted to play, so I was very disappointed. And so a couple years later, when 3.5 came out, I picked up some books, and I picked up Diablo 2, and I had the collector's edition, which had the whole thing with it. And so like I have my little maps out, and me, my best friend, and my brother rolled up some characters. But I want to play a character too, and you can't DM and play a character. But I was like, I'm just going to do a little halfling that specializes in slings and be a fighter, and all he's going to do is attack everything. He's not going to do anything else. And we kept fighting a bear. We kept dying, and after about the third attempt in 6 hours, we decided that we called it a day. So, kind of put role-playing games on the back burner for a while. I launched my first Kickstarter in 2013. It was just a little card game called Beep Beep Attack. Commercial failure overall, but I learned a lot of stuff about like the shipping process and everything. And you can't put a price tag on experience at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But then I really started getting into like DCC. It really like hit the spot. And then went to some conventions, played some of that. Whatever else you found a slot for, and that's kind of really where it hit. And I always loved being like the DM. Very occasionally am I a player. I actually have a good DM now that like lets me actually play, which is nice. And it's a Mutant Crawl Classic, which makes it even better.
So you don't end up being the forever GM.
Yeah, I am not the forever GM, and my wife loves playing too, and she actually wants to start DMing some like special things. Like we picked up the Tournament of Pigs. I think it's the DCC is the name of it,
Mm-hmm.
and she wants to run that a couple of times. So excited to do that.
Yeah, I can get that. Now, when it comes to Adventures of Combat and Quest, was that just born out of fiddling about with DCC, or was there a different origin story to the design ethos?
So the design ethos was kind of twofold. I really love the dice chain. I think it's just such a fantastic little thing. Because you can make a weak character become really strong, like if they get a good couple pluses on the dice chain. You take a D, 10 to D20 or D24, like that's a big difference. But my true love is Diablo 1. It's the first game like ever modded. I went in there and did some machine code to like make my own like Ozman's mod back in 1997, 98.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love that mechanic of just randomized loot. I think a lot of our ARPGs now are very bloated, in my opinion. Like, there's so much to do. It's not about the journey. Like, I do a lot of Diablo 2 single pass like type tournaments to where like I ran a tournament called the Random Tournament for like 7 years in a row, and you get a random class, and you only get to use like 5 skills randomly, and you have a random set of equipment you can use, and you can't use anything. And you get a guardian or two, out of a couple of years. But I really like that kind of design, like philosophy, like randomization. And so, when I designed this game, I wanted two things. I wanted to have like a dice chain mechanic to where you would have your items that were randomly dropped, be able to increase that with your skills and stuff. So like, yes, a weapon may only deal like 2 die 5, but once you got going, maybe those 2 die 5 were now 2 die 16.
Mm-hmm. With that kind of thing in mind, would you say that combat, because when I looked through what I did with combat and quest, I ended up getting a very beer and pretzels kind of vibe. Like, this is something that you could set up characters very quickly for one shots and the like. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. So its journey began really back in the summer of 2022. I had this like random idea like for like that design of a game, and so I went to work, and I'm a mental health counselor by trade, and so like a lot of times you don't have clients show up until you have time to do something. So I started like bashing this out, and then there's a little con in Ohio called Con on the Cob.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't get like a large participation, so I signed up for events, and I ended up running I think 3 or 4 events there. And so I think the game really does lends itself to like a 1 or 2 shot. Like, the idea is to get to level 20, but it is a very grindy game. Is it really fun in the short term? Yeah. Does it start getting really grindy once you're like level 10, level 12, to where like turns take a little more time than you want? So it really is a dungeon crawler at that point. And so one of the biggest things to reduce some of the time was making Questware so that you just push a button and you can get your loot, which really speeds up the gameplay.
Yeah. Which I suppose certainly tracks, given that you brought up Diablo as a significant influence. I'm hoping that you don't suffer the same curse that Diablo does, where you end up getting loot at the end of an adventure that you can't even use.
Well, you do get loot that you can't use, but you can sell it immediately. And then there is a gambling mechanic, which is, more of a homage to Diablo 2 than anything else with, gambling. So you just go in town and you're like, oh, sure, I got this awesome item that I can't use, but I can use the gold I got from it to gamble the item I will, hopefully want. And maybe it's good, maybe it's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so like adds that randomization, but also it's to streamline to where like you're going to get a good character. Like level 5 through like level 9 is kind of like that nice sweet spot in a game to where like you're kind of OP at that point because the monsters haven't caught up to your power, because you get the second tier of items, which increase your power. You get your level 5 skills, which drastically improve your firepower. And then once you get to level 10, now 2 groups spawn at one time in one area, and now it's like, oh, it got a little bit harder now again.
Mm-hmm.
But you're able to power through it.
Yeah. And now, one of the things I find interesting is it looks like for this system you are using a D100 as the primary mechanic when it comes to combat, but outside of that, it sounds like you're using the dice chain when it comes to action resolution.
Yeah. So every class has a primary stat die, and so like for warrior it's a strength. And so whatever the chart goes up every 4 strength you have. So at 4 strength you're at a D8. Once you hit the 5, you're from 5 to 8 you're a D10, and then you go to D12, and then you get D12 and a D4, so you have 2 actions all the way up to getting up to. It continually scales, so even if you have like 100, you're going to get bonuses. But your third action die is unlocked at 40 strength.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can use those either to cast a skill. And so if you're rolling a skill, for example, one of the early warrior ones would be Unrelenting, which gives you just a nice protection, or damage prevention, sorry. And so like if you roll it and you have like 2 points in it, you add whatever you roll on your die that you use. So if you use your die 4 versus your die 12, you have a better chance to get a higher number. Then you add whatever your skill points is. So you get like 10, you're absorbing 5 damage for 5 hits.
Yeah.
But if you're just using a basic attack, it doesn't matter whether you use your die 4 or your die 20, it's all the same.
In some games that do use a skill system, there is a tendency to try and encompass every single potential action or profession humanly possible. I'm guessing because of the fact that you're trying to keep it so light that there's not as many skills as some of those games back in the 90s, but just a handful, like a baker's dozen or 2 per class.
Yeah, so each class has 12 skills. Roughly half of them are passive skills, and then the other half are active skills. So, and then you get a total of 40 skill points you get to use, and each can have a max point place in them of 10. So effectively, you can max 4 of your 12 skills. Ideally, you're probably going to have 2 maxed, and then a couple like passives cherry picked, and maybe some situational things that you want to add a point or 2 to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can certainly get that. Now, within each of the classes, it appeared that you also have a bit of, I guess randomization when it comes to special abilities. Like you have the weapon mastery for warrior, you have the shapeshifting for druid. Is that just a common thing throughout?
Yeah, so each class ends up specializing in something. So they have 3 basically disciples that they fall under.
Mm-hmm.
And then the skills kind of fall in line with that. So like you mentioned druid. So the druid has nature, earth, and shapeshifting.
Mm-hmm.
So 5 of their skills are shapeshifting, 3 are earth, and then the other 4 are nature. Mm-hmm. And so almost everyone has a level 1, and then a 5, and then some may or may not have a 10. And so each class, plays similarly, because like most games, there's always some kind of overlap, but they all have an overarching theme that is different than the other one. So like the playstyle is, pretty much different. Like the warrior is very good at taking more hits. The next closest would be like the paladin of evil, very melee focused, in your face kind of paladin.
Mm-hmm.
And he can deal a lot of upfront damage, but he actually forgoes his shield, and he doesn't get as many health per point of stamina or level up, so his health is usually a little bit less.
And with that in mind, I do wish I had the full size version of that thing. When it comes to damage, because it is, I'm assuming that damage is based on a particular damage die. Since you're doing a percentile roll, is there an extra effect if somebody rolls a natural 1 or something along those lines? I know, I think RuneQuest did it as a natural 1 to 3.
Yeah, so you have a range. So the attack is called your attack rating, and so basically how you hit is you roll your D100, and let's say your base attack rating is 7. The monster you're fighting has 20 defense. Your target number is your attack rating minus their defense would be 50, so 50 or less will give a hit. On a base level character, level 1, unless they're using like the Paladin of Kisar, for example, can increase, and so can the Hunter of the Damned. On a 1 to 5, you critically strike. And at level 1, that's just you're adding 1d4 damage to your attack. 1 to 20 is an auto hit. No matter what the target's defense is, you're going to hit them. That was built in because the way the combat mechanic works is even if I have 180 attack rating, but my opponent has 150 defense, it infinitely scales, which is really nice. So like you're always going to have that. And then axes give a increase to minimum chance to hit, like a base axe is 25. Once you get to steel, it's 30. And then one of the stellar axes, if you have one of them equipped, your minimum chance to hit is 35%, which is always great. But on the flip side, 90 or above roll is always a miss. And if you roll 95 or higher, you actually stun yourself. And how stunning works in this game, and for players and monsters, you lose your next action.
Mm-hmm.
So a level 1 character, that's really detrimental because you may die because the monsters may attack you. The benefit of the way the attack mechanic works is if the character is stunned, the monsters ignore that player.
Mm-hmm.
Which is good sometimes, but sometimes you might have your weakest person in the back and they get swamped by 4 and they get hit and blasted. Occasionally we lose a lot of level 1 characters. That's really funny.
Mm-hmm.
Pole arms are really awesome weapons. The British is really awesome to start out with. It has a 1d20, which people love. Strength 8 requirement, so like right off the gate is where you can equip one. But the drawback to polearm class weapons is they have an automatic fail from 85 to 100. It reduces as you go up to steel and stellar qualities, and then at 92 and above, it's a stun. So there is a little bit of trade-off there for more damage.
Oh yeah. So with that in mind, I'm guessing protection is essentially soak. Damage reduction in some games.
Yeah, so damage reduction comes in 3 different types. It's physical damage reduction, magical damage reduction, which is a type that deals just straight magic damage.
Mm-hmm.
The next one is elemental damage reduction, which goes off the top, and then if there's any remaining elemental damage, your resistance play a role. And this is whatever your resistance number is, let's say it's 2, you're rolling a d20 between level 1 and level 10. And then if your number is lower than that number, you take half the remaining damage. So early on, you're taking almost the full effect of it, but later on, you're taking a lot less. And then once you get level 10, it becomes a d24. Once you get level 15 or 16, I don't remember what it's on is, then you become a d30. So it allows the game to like scale it up a little harder to get. The monks have rogue mastery, which if they're equipping a rogue, which is the only kind of armor they can equip, they actually get a re-roll on their failed resistance roll, which makes them really like nice at taking elemental hits early on in the game.
Yeah. Speaking of when it comes to the classes, there's quite a few of them, and there were a few that I was a bit curious on as far as how they would work. You've already mentioned monk a few times, but
man, monks are awesome.
Well, monks have always been awesome. It's just that in some attempts at fantasy, because martial characters end up getting the short end of the stick, they're not allowed to be as awesome as they should be.
Look, so monks are, since we're going to talk about monks, they're such a unique class. They have a totally different equipment layout than any other class in the game. They can't equip a weapon. They have 6 rings that they get with, 3 on each hand. And as they increase their ring mastery, they get to double up on bonuses they have. So if you have 10 points in it, which almost every monk's going to always have 10 points in it, you can choose like strength or dexterity or whatever. Let's say you have plus 20 strength from your rings that you're equipping, and you end up adding another 150% on top of that. So now those rings are providing 50 strength, which is 10 more damage. So like it's a really nice buff that they get. I had this level 7 monk that ended up having like 400 hit points because every ring I rolled had stamina on it, and his stamina just exploded. It was great.
So when it comes to the 3 paladins, playstyle wise, how do they differentiate themselves from each other?
Yeah, so the Paladin of Gable is, like I said earlier, he is straight up in your face. He actually forgoes the shield. He can dual wield maces. At level 10, he has Blessing. Might have Gable, I think is the name of the skill. He ends up doubling bonuses on his maces, whatever they roll, like kind of like how the monk does, to where like if you have 10 on each, you add 50% more to it. The Paladin of Kisser is very unique. They use a one-handed crossbow, and they have a lot of elemental attacks, so they kind of keep things at bay. And they're really focused on increasing the party's critical range and their attack rating. And then the Paladin of Zinf is more of a caster style paladin, and he also gets to use Poison Bolt as like his first attack, which is really nice. So Poison is another damage type. It can either just do nothing, or if the skill allows it, it can do something really cool. Which instead of rolling your D100, you're rolling 2D12, and so one's your ones and one's your tens. So your chance to fail attack is a lot higher in stunning yourself, which is really cool.
All right.
And then the last damage type is nether damage, and there's no prevention for that unless something specifically says it. The Warrior's Unrelenting actually prevents that type, but other than that, there's no other way to prevent it.
Yeah. And when it comes to the magic users that you do have, whether it be the wizard, the necromancer, or even the spell sword, is it a case where magic is just treated as another incarnation of the skill system? There isn't like a spells per day or something like that?
Yeah, it's just a skills system, but there is a failure mechanic. So you're using whatever your action die is, and so skills can also critical hit. So if they roll their highest die face, they critically hit. So they add whatever damage is at your current critical level. So it would still be a 1d4. There's ways to reduce that to where like your critical skill range is reduced by 1, 2, 3. So like on a d12, you'd be rolling like a 9 or higher would critically hit, which is really nice. On the flip side of that, if you roll a 1, it's an automatic failure. And then on top of that, you have to roll to save the skill. Otherwise, you can't use it again that combat. You can attempt to use your next highest action die and roll a d20 and try to save it again, but you're possibly lose a whole bunch of actions. And then if you roll 5 or less on level 1 skills, you have to use a save of DC 10 or you can't use it again as well. So then you'd have to roll to try to get it again. So there is a counterbalance there to where like you could lose your skills, but usually most of the classes have a skill or two that doesn't require that they can use. And the spell sword is actually a different case. So the spell sword has to attack with a sword or cast a spell and keep doing that in that order. There's one skill that allows them to like double up once, but if they, for example, fail one of their spells, instead of them losing the use, it actually negates some of their damage next time they deal damage.
Yeah, it sounded like the spell sword was the closest thing to the Gish archetype. If you're familiar with that.
I am not. Is that Final Fantasy?
No.
Okay. No.
Gish isn't a class per se, but an archetype of characters that are decent at both fighting and casting. Comes from when the Githyanki and Githzerai first started appearing. I believe it was in Fiend Folio, though do not quote me on that.
Okay. But
the central idea is being able to do a little bit of both. And it's a concept that's been fraught with traps in a lot of games because of the fact that while it's not going to be as good as a pure martial or a pure caster, it doesn't have anything that those two can't do.
Yeah, they really benefit by the more they hit with their sword consecutively, the more powerful their spells get, and sort of vice versa as well. Yeah. So like if they deal a lot more damage, they add more to their sword attack. So like they can really push out a lot of damage. And then they have a lot of debuffs. Like their first level skill Pulsar debuffs damage
Mm-hmm.
and gives you a more attack rating, which is really kind of insane, and it really helps out.
Yeah, in that regard, the spell sword sounds to me like what the Blade Singer was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Which it sometimes has been in some games where you're supposed to be alternating between casting and fighting. Although it's a little hard to do that when when a lot of spells are one-offs that you have to prepare in advance.
Yes.
This will probably not surprise you at all, but I've never been the biggest fan of the Vancian model of spellcasting, the whole spells per day thing, for various reasons. Least of which forcing people to, I won't say forcing, but certainly a bigger inclination to be to be conservative with their spells.
Yeah, it changes the way people play games. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And when I look at a lot of fantasy fiction, that whole thing of I need to wait until I can cast my spells again, you don't really see that. You might see, I'm too exhausted to cast spells, and there's ways to do that, but you don't. But the setup that we see in the Vancian model, you don't see in
Yeah, I really like the way DCC always handled it. Was unless you rolled low, you still had uses of it, and even then, like if you're a cleric and healing, like it just added to your failure rate for the day. So it's that's part of the reason why I chose this model, is because like I want players to play the way they wanted. Did I want them to have a chance to fail something? Yeah. I'm like for example, the wizard was one of the initial classes, and although they can fail, they also have one of the cool skills called cantrips, and it allows them. There's no failure rate. They just choose one of 10 cantrips that they want to cast, and they cast.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had players be like level 3, 4, and all they've put is all their points in cantrips, because you can increase. You're more like a jack of all trades. You increase your allies to hit rating. You increase their defense. You have a little damage that you can deal, and then there's early level stabs that allow you to get an extra cast of a cantrip per round. And so like it really changes the way like people would view a wizard, or like that they're almost like a cleric, like a buff bot, but they're so powerful. And when people see them, like, wow, that's really cool. Like I didn't know I was going to do this. At Origin this year, somebody ended up doing that.
Yeah. Now, with that in mind, I was one of the classes that I'm not entirely sure what the parallel would be. Was Hunter the Dam? Would that be akin to a very specific type of ranger or something like that?
So the Hunter the Dam is just a very unique class. The original idea for them was that they would just be dual wielding like hand crossbows and going to town. And,
so somewhat like the Demon Hunter in Diablo 3.
Yes. And then they were going to be like a trapper, and what ended up happening was after some playtesting, like the trapping just ended up becoming too powerful, because they get this little cool ability at level 1 that they can take. It's called Spike Pop. It is consistent damage. It deals with 1 point. It's a die 3 physical, and then a random die 3, another die 3 of a random element. You roll die 3. It's either electric, fire, or frost. If it is fire, you add 1d to your physical and elemental dice. So you're dealing a little more. Before it was dealing a lot more damage than that, and what I found out was players would be smart, and they would just be like, "Boom! I'm just putting all my points in here doing this." And then we had a player that was like, "I'm gonna use a long staff because it adds +1 to my damage." So then it's just more damage, and they would just like wreck early level things. And so it had to be scaled back some to where like it's not super powerful. It's nice early on. You can only cast it once per round, so it's not like you can just keep steamroll stacking it. But the investment in it doesn't really pay off unless like you're really going down that road and you're using stabs to like, and then it's always a random element, so like you don't know, hey, maybe plus 2 to your fire damage, or +2 die to your fire damage. But if you're only rolling like cold and electric, it's not helping as much. So, they get a healing shot, and then they get some really cool tinker abilities. Later on, they have a spell called Mimic, which allows you to copy any other character class's level 1 or level 5 spell. So it gives them some cool things. They have a kind of like a turret that you put either a crossbow or a bow in, and it shoots. Just at its damage. And then they also have like a called sharpshooter. It's like an assassin shot. Like they get to use it once for combat, but it's your first shot and it gets like massive bonuses.
Now, when it comes to the loot system, which you made a big deal on that, it sounds like it is a case where there's a lot of potential tables, given things like tiers, the item bases, as well as the effects of different prefixes and suffixes.
Right now I'm looking at it, and the manual, it starts at page 174 for the item rolling and ends at page 226. So there are a ton of tables. And I reorganized it so it was a little easier to flip through, because before it was like separated by tier level. Instead, I just separated it by item type. So like, because the way items work is this: you have your 4 different tiers, and so let's say you're in tier 2, like, which is level 5. So you're gonna start out, you're gonna roll the item, and if it rolls too low, so you roll a D100. But if you get like 2, well, it's gonna get knocked down to tier 1 for that like prefix. But that doesn't mean the suffix is going to get knocked down. So it's kind of like the old, how Diablo 2 works, and how most of the RPGs work now. I don't know how they all work, honestly, anymore. So you could get an item with a tier 4 prefix, a tier 3 prefix, a tier 2 suffix, and a tier 1 suffix. Like, unlucky, yes. And then the luck modifier allows you to adjust that some. So it allows a lot of variation. And so, like, you may only get like a short sword, but that short sword might have all 4 tier 4 prefixes and suffixes, which actually may make it better than either an iron or a steel or an iron sword quality sword. So like, there's a lot of variation in there. Like, oh cool, this is a really awesome item, and since it rolled really high, like, it's still useful. It's not like it's trash at that point.
And now, with that in mind, you've also talked about doing solo play, and with playing solo, is that going to be a case of the monsters having a sort of, for lack of a better term, soft AI, where you're able to see what their potential action is?
No, so when you play solo, you have a mercenary companion. The mercenary companion only have like 3 skills to choose from. Very simple, and their stats are already predefined. So like, when you level up, there's no thinking on what you're doing with them. You're just equipping them with new items. So the way the monsters attack is very simple. If it's a ranged monster, if they're engaged in melee, they're going to attack whoever's they're engaged with. If they're not engaged in melee, they're going to attack a ranged character or the character with lowest health. And then if they're melee, they're going to attack whoever they're engaged with, unless, of course, they get, which really sucks, is when the player gets stunned, then they're going to have the mercenary. But on the flip side, if the mercenary gets stunned, everybody's just targeting the player, which sucks. If you're playing solo, you get a couple of bonuses. You get plus 20 health. You get 1 more health a level. You end up starting with a studies, which is basically like a feat style, like you get a bonus to one of your stats or something. And so you get a little more powerful because you're a little more heroic. And then you actually start at level 2. So you generally are going to have 2 actions to start out with. And then you start with 300 gold, but you purchase it at the level 1 gamble rate. So you're able to purchase a lot more.
Yeah, I can certainly get that. And I think one of the other things I am a bit curious about is the companion application you're doing called Questware. Was this something that was planned for this kind of game from the word go, or was it something that the idea developed a little ways in?
No, the idea was always to get there. At some point, I'd like to make it into an app that can go on your phone. But that's a little bit outside my skill set right yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just makes it super simple. It kind of puts everything in grid. And honestly, if I'm solo playing it, I just pop it up on my screen. I get a little dice tray out, my character sheets, and I chuck the dice there.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's super quick. It rolls up all your monsters for you. So like rolling up an encounter by yourself, if you're using the book, generally takes per map level between 5 to 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're doing a dungeon run, which is 3 maps plus a boss map, it's close to an hour of your time already versus I can push a button and it does it for me automatically. Streamlines the play very much. So I always thought that was what the game needed, like, because we play it and then it's not that you got snailed out because you weren't having fun. You got snailed out because the mechanics weren't required additional like rolling, and you can prep as much as you want, but then like it ended up like, hey, we prep something but with the amount of different randomizations that a monster spawn could have from 8 different monster types and 8 different enchantment types, like you had such a wide range of monster spawns that you'd have per map.
Yeah, and that whole prefix and suffix thing often applies to the monsters as much as to the players or equipment in a lot of ARPGs. And
yeah, so
speaking
yeah,
of,
so they only get one type, so it's usually an offensive or defensive buff, and then once you get a named monster, they add +1. They get one type, but then they also get a blessing that alternates between turns, which can do one of like 6 to 7 things that like makes them really brutal. Like gives them a secondary attack. The one is adding damage every other round, which doesn't seem like a lot. The hardest ones are the ones that add attack rating and defense, and if they're attacking thing, they can spiral out of control if you cannot kill them. So like that's probably the ones that solo players have the hardest time with, is because if they're just physical damage based and they have no way to cast a spell, it could get to where like you're only hitting on a 20% roll, and that doesn't fare well usually.
Yeah. Now, since we're on the subject of Diablo quite a bit with this, there's been a motif for the longest time in ARPGs of these higher difficulties that result in greater loot, but also greater challenge. Is that kind of sliding difficulty and loot setup something that you've considered for adventures?
I consider it like doing like a level 21 to 25 to where like you had that. Ideally, I think most people are going to use this as a 1 or 2 shot game. Like when I go to conventions, people really love that, like, hey, it's an action-oriented game, but we don't always want a dungeon crawler. Sometimes we want the storytelling. And so like I think it's one of those things that like I really had to look down and say, like, do I want this to have like all this difficulty added on? Because I don't always need that. And if you want a harder challenge at level 2, you can go up to level 3, level 4, level 5 monsters if you want. And so that's just like, which gives you greater reward. So like it's already built in early on where you can scale it to however your party's doing. Like if you guys are all getting items with 3 or 4 affixes on them, you get a unique item or 2. You're really getting the ones that affect your skills the most. You can take on something 3 or 4 levels higher than you early on. It starts getting hard once you hit like that level 10 to where like now it's spawning 2 groups, but you have that nice sweet spot between like level 5 and like level 9 that like you can really like increase your levels. Um, and you can always scale it down. Like, hey, if you're not quite strong enough to take on like two groups at once, you could, it's your game. You can always just say, hey, this group doesn't exist. I mean, it allows players to have that adjustment to difficulty, whatever they want.
Yeah, I can see that. Now, as far as the size of the core book, what are you planning on that?
Right there, right now, what it's at. It's at 308. There's a couple more pages to do, so it's probably gonna end right around 320.
Yeah, I could certainly see that. Like 320, and I am guessing that. Do you have plans on doing a full-on quick start? Because currently, what was available was it's some of the assets for the Temple of Zinj adventure on Drive-Thru RPG, as well as the guide. Although the guides were mainly character sheets, blank character sheets.
There should be another one on there that has all the like they're like 12 pages each, has all the character stuff in them for each character.
If you're talking about the character creation files entry, that wasn't what I saw there. Like the two PDFs that were in there were just sheets. Mostly blank sheets.
So there should be one called character files quick start guides. It should have all the files in there.
Yeah, I didn't see that on Drive-Thru RPG. I don't know if you have it on a different spot, and if it is, I will redact that.
I just sent it to you.
And let me see here. Yeah, this is the same one I was looking at earlier.
Yeah, it should have the level and character class quick guides in it with a zip file.
There wasn't a zip file there. There was just the PDFs.
Okay. Do you see the zip file now?
No.
Very odd, because I see it on my end.
Yeah, that is. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but I will keep an eye out for it. And obviously, there's the numerous guides for each of the classes and the way combat works within your particular YouTube page, I believe.
Yep.
And several of those are on the Kickstarter proper, but given the fight for Prussia posters that you had there, do you have something of an implied setting when it comes to adventures, or is it a case of a few bullet points here and there, but not a full setting chapter?
So inside the book, like all the skills have like little biography above top of them, like where they're from, and so like it kind of gives you like the idea of the world that you're at, like each location, like specialized stuff. So like it really starts building that world thing without like being overtly in your face.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested in the world building, you can read about it. If you're not and you just want to fight, then like have at it.
And that would certainly make sense. And was there anything when you were developing it that you thought was a good idea at the time, but as development came along, it either evolved itself out or created some unforeseen issue.
Yeah, the first thing that went was initiative. I had initiative, and it had this extra layer of bog that I didn't like. Because we're heroes in this game, like we want to kill the scourge. Like we're invading their territory when we're attacking them. So like players always would get the opportunity to have the drop first, and so the initiative just went down to a basic players ranged attack, monsters ranged attack, players melee attack, monsters.
So a phase system not far removed from say MERP.
Yeah. Now, obviously, there's outliers like the Paladin and Gable, for example, and the Monk both have an engage ability to where, regardless of what's going on, they get to leap into combat and engage combat first. And then some of the Overlord bosses, Gilbad, the Thundering, for example, as soon as you engage him, lightnings everybody, and that's the first action, which overrides even the player's action. So there's a few of those.
Yeah, I can certainly get that. And with all that said, I do want to sincerely thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come all the way to my monastery and enjoy the madness that happens here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yep. And anytime you see fit to return, the door is always open. As I often say around here, drinking is not mandatory, but it is encouraged.
Love that.
And, of course, a sincere thanks goes out as well to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. There will be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra. I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody.
Hãy subscribe cho kênh Ghiền Mì Gõ để không bỏ lỡ